Hello, friends. Welcome back to the second half of second edition of Global India Healthcare Conclave, organized by APEC Digital News Network and iLog Media, supported by DST, Digital India, MyGov, NIC, and HSCC. In the inaugural, we had a perspective on how to build the future of healthcare policy framework, and we had healthcare leaders from government, from hospital ecosystem like AIMS, and also from various state governments as well. And they all have given a perspective on how to leverage technology, innovation, and what will be the right policy and how those policies will be implemented to build an effective healthcare ecosystem of future resilient, sustainable healthcare ecosystems, keeping in mind the pandemic and a new world order. And when we talk about the pandemic and a new world order, one of the most important subject which we all are discussing of late, it's being happy and the well-being and mental stress, how to cope up with all those things. Because most of us have stayed back home for 3, 4 months during lockdown, not only in India but world over. How it has impacted us, how it will be impacting us in future. To know answers about all these things, we have a special panel today on the first day of second Local India Healthcare Conclave. Name of this panel discussion is Importance of Happiness and Well-being in the present scenario. And let me put it quite straight, in the present scenario of pandemic and post-pandemic new world order. And for that, we have esteemed panel today. The experts in happiness, well-being sector and mental uh, stress and everything. So for that, let me introduce our speakers. Let me introduce Dr. Daljit Kaur, founder Dawn. We welcome Dr. Kaur. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We have with us Mimamsa Singh Tanwar, lead clinical psychologist, Fortis National Mental Health Program. Thanks, Ms. Tanwar, for joining us. We also have with us Neha
Thank
Lal,
you so much.
Senior
Pleasure to
GM
be here.
Operations and HR, GCS Medical College Hospital Research Center. Thanks, Ms. Lal, for joining us.
Thank you.
Before we start the session, let me also inform our viewers and our speakers as well that this broadcast is being broadcasted live in Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn through APEC page. So whoever has joined us in social media or who have joined us in this special broadcast can also log into Facebook and see the entire panel discussion live. With this, I would like to ask first question to Dr. Daljit Kaur. Surviving pandemic through mental and physical well-being and staying happy to counter this kind of unprecedented stress we have ever witnessed in modern day human history, perhaps not in last 100 years at least. What is the way out, Dr. Kaur? What's your take on that?
Okay. First, let me just briefly tell you about myself. So, I'm Dr. Daljit. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and I'm the founder of Dawn Healthy Minds. This is an initiative to create mental health awareness by education and training. So, I really thank APAC for inviting me today. I would probably share some experiences, as a psychiatrist, seeing people, and also because I've been doing some training alongside, maybe I can share my perspective. Now, these are the unprecedented times, so there's no surprise that the stress levels and anxiety have increased in this pandemic, and we know there are like obvious reasons. We are so worried about the health issues, about contracting COVID. We've seen so many lives being lost. Grief has been a very big thing. Grief is powerful, it's painful, and it's a deep experience that we have to go through. I've seen few people coming to my clinic, who say lost their father, so that the mother is now depressed, brother is depressed, the son has given up his job to look after the family. So you can just see, this what this pandemic is doing. Losing one life actually affects the whole family. So we have to look at it in a broader way. Other challenges are isolation. There are so many people, especially our elderly, who stayed indoors because they're worrying about going out, contracting COVID, and their families also restrict them. But now it just feels like this COVID thing is going on, and the challenges, are also ongoing. So what do we do? How do we deal with it? Since the topic is about well-being, I think I just want to spend a couple of minutes on that. So what is well-being? You have two aspects here. You've got the mental well-being and you've got the physical well-being. So mental well-being talks about a person's psychological functioning. How are they coping? What is the life satisfaction? Their ability to develop and maintain relationships. So how are they managing all this in the pandemic? That is what we need to look at. Here we talk about their emotions, their purpose, their optimism, their attitude, their resilience, and the relationships. Now, when we talk about physical well being, it's basically about reducing the health risks and then enhancing your ability to function. So, what are the barriers for this physical well-being? It's mostly these chronic diseases. So, other than the COVID thing we are talking about, it's the chronic diseases, and we know that lot of comorbidities, kind of have a bad prognosis with the COVID, and unhealthy lifestyle. So, these things are there. So when we talk about wellness, it's basically we're talking about the set of activities that we can do to help individuals and their family members to bring a change in their behavior and reduce the health risks that we've spoken about. And so directly or indirectly, when we do all this, we are enhancing their ability to function. So I think we have to look into both the aspects, physical well-being and mental well-being. Now you were asking me, what do we do to counter stress? I guess there's been so much spoken about, different strategies. First of all, I would say this pandemic has created a fatigue among people. So we have to learn to deal with that and avoid burnout, especially so because this is the conclave for healthcare. So I would say, healthcare professionals are also getting affected really bad. It's like a secondary trauma they are going through, seeing people become unwell, have, whether you are a doctor, you are into admin or you are into a CEO or so, but you're dealing with all that in the hospitals all the time or healthcare. You might be a policymaker. There's this constant negativity going on. So avoid the burnout. Basic things like, good sleep, physical activity, meditation, yoga, healthy eating, all these are important. And I mean, I don't need to reiterate because there are so many you know, kind of call centers and all now offering psychological help. And I think that will come further in the discussion. Other thing you need to do is work on the relationship bit. So you would not want to isolate yourself completely. You would want to connect with friends and family because when you see them, be it in person or be it, on a virtual level, you see their face.
हमारी साथ बात करी मैं सर.
Am I okay? Sorry, there's a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of...
you're okay. You're okay.
Yeah, okay. I think we are getting some background noise.
Yeah.
So I was talking about how, it is important to keep the social interactions going on. Now, even with the, World Mental Health Day, the theme was kindness. So helping others, doing random acts of kindness. And we've seen people, everyone's come out to support all the, be it COVID survivors or be it, the family struggling to get their treatment done or the plasma therapy and so on. So kindness helps you, and it makes you feel powerful and empowered. And then when everyone starts doing these kind deeds, it has a positive effect on the society as well. So that's an important thing. Other things like, we talk about things like cognitive appraisal. That means with all this negativity going on, there's a lot of your own thinking going negative. So you want to bring some positivity out of it. Mindfulness is, a lot discussed. So mindfulness based meditation is also there. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit later how businesses and policymakers and government can look into, maybe develop some insights. So a lot of work can be done into wellness and happiness and so on. So I think these are the basic things. Obviously, if there is more coming, we can discuss, and my colleagues will also look into that.
Right, right. Thanks, Dr. Daljit Kaur, for setting the context of this discussion on importance of happiness and well-being in the present scenario of pandemic. And as you have said that there can be two aspects of well-being. One is physical and mental, and how being happy and taking some steps can help us to pass this time without being sad, and also how we can counter the stress of pandemic by being happy and also staying well. I think we can discuss more on the later half of the panel discussion. I'll come to Mimansa Singh Tanwar, lead clinical psychologist, Fortis National Health Mental Health Program. Mimansa, your take on this: how we can survive pandemic through this being physically and mentally well and also staying happy. What's your take on that? What needs to be done?
I think, first of all, whenever there is something which is unprecedented, uncertain that happens in our lives, the first approach that we need to make, have when we are approaching a situation like this is, one, be aware of how it is impacting all of us emotionally. We are looking at a basic lifestyle change happening in our lives, a basic structure that has gone out of our life, a basic routine which has gone out of each one of us lives. Whether it is children, whether it is adults, each one of us are impacted. And the only way forward is to first recognize how it is impacting us. And the second is accepting the fact that yes, it's impacting us, and that is the why is it there, and what's going to happen to this, and what's the future going to hold for us. None of us have the answers to that. And that's an honest answer to each one of us. We don't know what's going to happen. And that's an honest answer to each one of us. We don't know. We already can see how it is changing our life on a day-to-day basis. So much has changed from being in physical space. We all have gone to virtual spaces. We are all, connecting with each other through virtual, mediums. How do we go back from here is also something that one has to look at. Can we even go back from here? Is this the new lifestyle we're going to have? So I think when we have to look at well-being is a continuous process. It's our ability to adapt in any given situation is what defines our well-being. And for each one of us, well-being actually differs from individual to individual. So for each one of us, well-being actually differs from individual to individual. So for each one of us, we have to ask ourselves, what is it which is important for me? How it is getting impacted? What do I need to do over here to be able to get my well-being back where I want it? For my own family, what is it that I need to do to be able to get there and give their well-being an important aspect? So I certainly very strongly believe that this time period has really made us look at well-being as an integral part of our life. Till now we have been thinking about every organization for that matter, whether it is corporate, whether it is schools, whether it is every sector, for that matter, is talking about well-being now. So that, I think that's a positive change of the ongoing time period. We are talking about health, we are talking about how can we make ourselves adapt to this ongoing situation in a much better way. How can we bring adapt to this ongoing situation in a much better way? How can we bring level also, we've been affected and impacted with the ongoing time period. So at a basic level, one wants to have a good, whether it is our health, whether it is our, in terms of our lifestyle, our healthy eating habits and all of those things. But at the other level, it's also something that we have to look at the satisfaction part. We tend to have self comparisons, in every change or every situation or every challenge face in our lives. And that can also make us feel a sense of deprived. How that feeling of that I am being deprived of something can also impact our well-being for that matter. So there are a lot many, so this is our physical health, we are aware of it. We're getting impacted in terms of our mental health, we're getting impacted in terms of our normal day-to-day life, our daily routine, all those things are getting impacted. That's one aspect of our well-being. The other aspect is, how do I make my life more meaningful? more satisfactory in an ongoing time period? And the answer, go back to the basics. In the last 1 decade, let's look at how our lifestyles had changed. There are so many social media platforms that have come up. We've talked about, organizations bringing up different programs, but have we been able to really bring that importance and focus to our well-being, whether it is in organizations, whether it is in schools, whether it is organizations, whether it is schools talking about mental health outcomes and mental health assessments? That's the change that we are looking at this point in time. And that's where we have to, this is where we have to start. We have to start, see this as a start of where we are focusing on well-being. And this is going to be a new change that we have to take to that level, where we are able to take this as an integral part of our day-to-day life, whether it is schools, whether it is organizations, talking about mental health outcomes and mental health assessments, whether it is schools talking about the learning outcomes that are actually based on the academic outcomes that are actually based on again emotional well-being and academic and mental health well-being, and what will actually come out of this space is going to impact our outcome. And
I
that's what we need
think
to understand in this ongoing time period.
I think if I can just interrupt, I think Mimansa, there is some network or connectivity issue at your end because your voice is breaking in the middle. So we'll come back to you. In the meantime, you can just try to check the connectivity at your end. Uh, I'll come to Neha Lal, Senior GM Operations and HR, GCS Medical College Hospital Research Center. As Mimansa was saying that uh, what is most important out of this pandemic, that now we have all realized and now we are all talking about the importance of well-being as an integral part of our life, and that is where we should focus more and more in coming months, coming years, uh, to counter the problems risen out of this pandemic. Your take on that, Neha Lal, Senior GM Operations and HR, GCS Medical College Hospital Research Center.
First of all, I thank APMC News Network for having me here on this important panel discussion on this very, very imperative topic on this amid COVID on well-being. Of course, I'm going to talk on the well-being and the mental wellness on healthcare professional being in healthcare domain. I just would like to give a brief on my organization. I am associated with the GCS Medical College Hospital and Research Center. We have a 1,000-bed hospital, private trust-based hospital with a private medical college. We have a nursing school, nursing colleges as well. It's a good campus with a strength of 2,000 employees. So, heading such a large pool of healthcare manpower, we had a lot of issues. Besides this COVID, we are a COVID center. We are handling third of total COVID pool of Gujarat, state of Gujarat. So you can imagine we have so far treated some 4,000 plus COVID patients at our particular hospital. We started treating COVID since March, late March, and from the beginning of the April. So we had quite a amount of experience how to deal with the situation and all that. Just give you a figure here that what that is published by the WHO, that 22,000 healthcare workers across 52 countries are so far affected. And if I give you the in the India context, the figures are, Telangana is 18%, followed by Maharashtra is 16%, and 14% in Delhi. These are the healthcare professionals affected by the COVID. So, besides the mental wellness and happiness, I would say I'll more, would like to give my perspectives on the safety aspect as well as, the psychological impact on the healthcare professionals. So there were a lot of issues as we had experienced. There were a lot of misbehaviors happened with the healthcare workers. There was, of course, a social and economical impact on these healthcare professionals. Of course, while dealing with the COVID patient, higher risk of pathogens and infections while working in the COVID areas, impact on the female staff, because as you know that many of the females that had to work from home and few of them had to be here in the hospital dealing with the family issues and kids and the family course and the house course. Besides that, there are issues with the personal protective equipment and how to use it, because COVID as such, I think, is an evolving issue. Such kind of pandemic, I think we had experienced before 100 years. And I think hardly anybody knew that, how to cope up with the situation. So starting with the, taking care of patients, involving in the treatment, following the protocols, evolving the SOPs, and daily, encountering the new issues, the firefighting. There were enormous, and there were a lot of difficult decisions were there on the part of healthcare workers. So the nurses and the doctors were highly affected. The nurses were not allowed to come on the duty by their parents or by their husbands, because we are a COVID hospital. So a lot of pressure on my head and the department, or I would say on the management side, that how to cope up with the things, how to manage the situation where we need to have the healthcare workers in the hospital at the particular site to treat the patient. And plus, I think it is more difficult than the pandemic. So pandemic was there, but I think there were a lot of panic in the society, and that actually pulled back the staff coming over the duty. Whether it's a nursing staff, whether it's a doctor, resident doctors, interns, students, or you can take the technicians or the housekeeping staff. Everybody put together. There was a lockdown situation, plus there was a patient. So we had a lot of logistic issues. Besides that, we gradually the situations got settled, and we had implemented a lot of motivating boosters through the social media, to the virtual platforms, whatever base we could do. I personally believe that any situation got menace and prospect. So menace, of course, we have to deal with it. The COVID is there, and I think we have to live with it. But if we talk about the prospect, I think the industry as such, the whole world got the 360-degree change, and I think there are a lot of opportunities, and the prospect are lying within this wasting pandemic, I mean this wasting crisis. So it's a right time to invent, innovate, re-engineer, relook, redouble our whole energy, and unwind the untouched solution which is lying in the industry itself. So a lot of untouched solutions were touched upon, and operational efficiency is increased now, and things are getting back to the normal. I believe COVID is going to be with us, and we are trying. We are just trying, and looking forward that the things settle down as far as the hospitals are concerned, because the COVID. I think still we have, I think, 150 patients still admitted at our COVID wards and COVID ICU. So uh, it's a continuous business to motivate the staff, and most important thing is employee engagement activity. So that has got double, rather compared to the pre-COVID era. So a lot of activities are being thrown to the employees just to make them motivated, just to keep the momentum high in the hospital, just to get going. So I'll come back with a lot of initiatives what we have done so far in order to ensure the happiness, in order to ensure the mental health, as well as the employee safety, while catering to the COVID patient as well as the non-COVID patients. Yes.
So if I take the crux of what Nehala had just said, that we need to, it's time to reimagine our approach to all these aspects of uh, mental health, physical well-being, and being happy. And we have to innovate, reinvent our approach to life. If I say, not only about being in a profession or something like that, we have to relook at a life in a new prism that will actually help us to tide over this pandemic, and also will make us ready to sustain and survive the new world order, especially when we talk about the mental strength and mental stress, countering those stress with mental strength. Thanks a lot for that. Uh, I think Dr. Daljit Kaur was saying that we have to also think about uh, the policy. So I know there has been a lot of discussion in recent past that uh, how and how well we can incorporate mental and physical well-being and being happy in the policy framework of our country. I'm sure this pandemic has shown us that this needs to be now one of the most important focus area when we talk about making policies in the healthcare sector. Your take on that, Dr. Kaur? Uh, do you think that the time has come that we give much more importance to mental and physical well-being, and also being happy. We know there are happiness index, and there are a lot of countries who are the upper half of those happiness index. It's also time for India to climb up to that ladder, where we can say India is a happy country. Maybe who knows, after 2 years down the line or 5 years down the line, if there's a proper policy and implementation of that policy. Your take on that, Dr. God? If you can unmute yourself, please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
So, as you were saying, definitely we have to change our approach, and the policy and framework also needs to change. When we talk about policies, I don't think we are referring only to the government sector. We're also referring to the private sector, and just as Neha was saying, just at their own corporate end, at the hospital end, they've been able to bring in lots of strategies to help their staff. So, and when you talk about, Souvik, when you talk about happiness index and all, I was just wanted to highlight, when we are measuring someone's well-being, you can measure, there are lots of scales where you can measure the subjective well-being. And when we talk about happiness, I think we have to take it into perspective. Now, we humans are not designed to be feeling happy all the time. Yeah, so I think with this pandemic going on, people can come up with extreme reactions. We don't need to catastrophize things. Equally, we don't need to be extremely optimistic either. So a small tip for people who are, looking at these social media platforms and just seeing people happy all the time and posting their achievements, and, so much of positivity quotes going on. We just don't want to be there chasing happiness. I think happiness is a lot more than that. So when you run after happiness and then you just, ignore your feelings, you're kind of setting yourself for failure. So I think, we need to have a very good balance as to what happiness is. When we talk about the policies, I mean, if we look at the government policy, first of all, I was just looking through this Ayushman Bharat thing, and there, I mean, they already have clause there where they're defining health and wellness sectors. So I think their aim was that they are going to have comprehensive primary healthcare services. In order to ensure this, they're going to convert the sub-health centers and also the primary health centers in rural and urban areas. They're going to convert them to health and wellness centers. So what they're going to do there is probably giving everyone, a particular time to care for themselves, like at least a 30-minute time to, do something. Now, there might be lots of activities going on there, like yoga and so on. And then when you've spoken about physical wellness, there are going to be lots of things there where people can address their maybe tobacco issue, their lifestyle changes, sleep hygiene, and so on. So I think those things are already put into the national framework. How much we are able to deliver that, and what is the follow-up of that I'm not aware of. And if there has been more work with the pandemic kept in mind, because this was made like in 2017 and 18, so has there been further changes into the way, the mode it's been delivered? That is something we need to reflect on. Now we talk about, maybe somewhere the public and private sector can collaborate and try to bring in a lot of, the public policies, kind of privatize them and start using, so people can bring it into a wider, they can experience at a wider scale. When I think the culture has to change. So the wellness, we listen to a lot of happiness and wellness, sectors. People are setting up wellness clinics. We hear so much about meditation, yoga, and so on. But do we want to keep it separate from the regular thing going on, or do we want to incorporate it? I feel that the culture has to change, where you align the wellness goals within the business strategy. So say you got a big hospital, or you got a corporate sector, then you want the CEOs, the leaders, the executives to become like a role model for wellness. So when you're talking about stress management, anxiety management, wellness, then are you looking at giving your staff a particular time to take away, where you've got these resources there within your corporate itself that they can use. Whether you've got like basic counselors there, if they can talk, or you've got like most of the, even the hospital, because obviously I'm a doctor, so what I can think of is, because I keep traveling to the UK as well, and I did that this just a couple of months ago, and there I realized, because pandemic and all, within the psychologist and psychiatry groups and all, they had a fixed time of 30 minutes mindfulness for the healthcare staff. Obviously there were a lot of other things going on for the patients. So what I'm trying to say is, when things are incorporated within your workplace, it really helps, and you're bringing that culture into it. You're changing a behavior at a bigger level, at a community level. So and we know that the whole style is now changed. People are working from home, so there's going to be, even for kids it's going to be like blended learning. For people it's going to be kind of blended work and so on. So the strategies for that also has to change, for especially because I mean, Neha, as you were just talking about how the nursing staff or the female staff, there were some restrictions from their families for them to come. I think the restrictions would also be for them, because they had to suddenly enter into a caring role where everyone was at home and a lot of work came in. They had to look after their children, I'm assuming the spouse would help out, but you got elders in the family and so on. So what I would just like to summarize is that the policy and framework has to be looked at a national level, at an international level, at a state level, and also at a sector level, as in your corporate or your hospital and so on. And what we do for ourselves, our communities, I think there has to be a lot of upgrade there. Like when I'm just talking about my own initiative, Dawn, I do courses for communities, for hospitals, to work on different things like emotional intelligence, resilience, and there are lots of these kind of activities going on throughout the nation, because I've seen Nimhans doing a lot of work, and Mimansa as well from the Fortis thing. There are so many activities done by people, and not everything is like for charity. There's so much voluntary work going on. So I would want people to kind of grasp that opportunity and utilize it. So I think my colleagues will speak more about the framework and the policies, but if there's anything more to come up, I'll be happy to answer that.
So, Dr. Daljit is saying that we need to have a uh, cultural change, to change our mindset, change our behavioral pattern, change our lifestyle. But at the same time, she has also raised a very important question, where she is saying that the policy change has to be done in geographical level and also at the sectoral level. If I'm not wrong, if I take the crux of what she has said just now. Mimansa, your take on that. What do you, according to you, that more needs to be done in terms of policy framework for putting forth the agenda of mental well-being, physical well-being, and being happy at the top of the interest of framing policy in the new world order?
So there's no doubt about the fact, like I said, that this is the time where we are now giving well-being an importance, and we are all talking about it. But the idea is now to also, make it an integral part of our day-to-day functioning. Any organization, any sector for that matter, and we really need to think about what strategies can we, have, whether it is corporate organizations, whether it is public health sectors, private healthcare, and even corporates for that matter, schools for that matter. I work a lot with schools, and well-being, how can it be made into an integral part of child's classroom, a child's school, a culture in that aspect is also extremely important, because I think well-being needs to be taken into consideration at multiple levels. In the very start, that we need to talk about how well-being is very, very important. So yes, it's very important that we reevaluate. We have policies in place. A lot of organizations have policies in place, but then we also have to see that how well are we being able to implement. If we are struggling somewhere, we need to reevaluate it. We need to also, if it comes to the organizations, for example corporates, we need to look at how can we have this as a parallel aspect, where we are looking at an individual's well-being, as a part of where we are able to give them a supportive environment, and how we are able to focus on mental health outcomes, because I think a person environment fit is very important anywhere you go. Similarly, in a private healthcare, again the same thing. There are healthcare workers who are working over there. We have wellness programs, we continue to do awareness programs, but then again, assessment of that is very important, whether it is corporate, whether it is healthcare. What are we doing to be able to provide that kind of psychological support that is needed by an individual at multiple levels? That is again very, very important. Similarly, in schools, awareness becomes first aspect. Very any sector you take, awareness is the first aspect. The second is the implementation. You devise a policy, you devise a strategy, how you make it a core aspect of your organization. Then you reevaluate it after some time. That's very, very important, because anything you devise, you have to reevaluate it. And then you look at where I again need to bring about a change over here to be able to make this into what I have visioned. So wellness needs to be as a part of the vision of every organization. That change in the vision needs to happen. And I do want to bring into the concept as well that nowadays when we look at where we have been talking about how lifestyle needs to undergo change. We continue to keep talking about how we need to have a work life balance. The reality is we've never been able to have a work life balance. And even in an ongoing time period where we are sitting at our homes, we are all capitalizing on time. We have more time now, we are not commuting. Let's see how we can capitalize this time and do more. So that internal need, the cultural change that has gone in terms of doing more, capitalizing more on anything that I have to be able to produce more, anything that I have to be able to produce more outcomes, to get the more outcomes, it is going to get us impacted if we are not going to see well-being as an integral aspect. How it is impacting and even also bringing about a change in our approach to day-to-day things. Our thinking pattern has changed, and that in itself leads to a change in terms of our own life action. No one wants to, and I mean, I talk about clients day in and out. You have everything, and we continue to keep talking about it. But the aspect of having more, doing more, becomes a part of our culture, any sector you go. And the fact that I have to do more, and that becomes the new normal and the new culture, that I am working for so many hours, and this is what I am, and this is how my culture is. And the change that has gone in the last few decades of doing more, having more, is certainly creating a level of deprivation somewhere or the other. The moment you realize something externally has impacted it, and that continues to keep oneself deprived with the feeling of being deprived. You may not be actually deprived of something, but the feeling continues to remain, and that also impacts our level of subjective well-being. So the first thing that I talked about was the objective well-being, that we need to certainly look at the assessment aspect, the policy aspect, re-evaluation, all of those aspects in every sector. And the second is the subjective aspect, where we have to also look at it internally. How the lifestyle has changed our own cognitive approaches, our own belief systems to our day-to-day lifestyle, and how do we actually end up making whether comparisons, whether the feeling of deprivedness, whether anything else for that matter. It has certainly impacted our approach to things. So our thinking has changed, and our cognitive biases have come in, and our own stereotypes for that matter, that we tend to conform to every now and then, with different cultures that bring in as a part of the work culture, as a part of the competitive culture. All of those things, certainly we tend to feel a pressure and we tend to conform to it. So what is it that we can do, to be able to also at an individual level have that sense of responsibility, to be able to see that I am also responsible for my own subjective well-being, and what can I do to perhaps change that? That's also very important. So it's both at the level of individual and the level of the society, the organization. It has to come in together.
So, if I take what you have said just now, I think two important things can be taken from what you have said now. One is focusing on the mental health outcome, Also, it's not about only creating awareness, but uh, creating awareness and also seeing to that the strategy, that awareness creation strategy is rightly implemented, and then evaluate the outcomes so that we can change our approach to well-being, be it mental and physical well-being, and also a subjective and objective approach to the lifestyle itself. I think these 3 points, if I can rightly point out of your statement right now. Nihalal, your take on that. Mm, what do you think that more needs to be done or can be done to put forth the agenda of mental and physical well-being into the main scheme of things more than ever now?
So I think the one of the major aspect which I observe in this whole pandemic is that homogeneity. Everyone was in the same state of all being. I mean, the whole world, be it any country. I think, but in the India context, I would say that the practice of working from home and doing more of physical exercise is up to certain limit. I think if you see the Western countries, they are more into the physical activity. They are more habituated to working from home, and they work kind of in the flexi hours and all that in many of the industries. So they are quite habituated kind of thing. And many of the aspect and many of the things were not new to them. While in a country like us, lot of things were actually pushed to us where we were actually bound to be at home. We were bound to follow certain rules and regulations and the infection control practices, yes, because Indians are very much lethargic to it when it comes to the our own safety and well-being. I think if you give 100 rupees to any Indian citizen, they would rather buy and go for the movie rather than going for the health checkup or any investigation. So annual health checkup was not part of it. I think that awareness was not there for taking care of their own self. And I think due to this pandemic, people have generally realized that how important it is, our physical health as well as mental health, and this meditation, yoga, exercise, physical, physical well-being, everything is so much so important. So I think that public at large have certainly realized that this is the important. If there is no health, there is no happiness. So that is one thing. Another thing is I particularly agree with Dr. Daljit that this is not the policy per se. I think the happiness and the mental wellness is a still a organization issue. I think the organization to organization, institute or any corporate companies, they should take this particular thing as an agenda on that first table. The top management should look at the strategic goals and imbibe this thing into the vision and mission and how to treat the employees. I think a lot of habit we cultivate during our working at our working place. I think at our organization, then we inculcate at our home also. So many of the practices like corporate companies and organization and being in healthcare, it is very much imperative to initiate. Like we generally celebrate the yoga International Yoga Day by following the yoga practices for 1 or 2 days. But this time also we practiced virtual yoga. Gujarat is known for Navratri and Garba festival. People were so much so upset that we could not follow the Garba this time. So we followed the virtual Garba competition and we tried and engaged our employees to go through this particular competition, and we actually uploaded them, and we evaluated the video performance and we gave them kind of a prizes and mementos kind of thing. So this is something which a lot of such things like all the employees are working in the COVID duty, so giving them the Corona Warrior certificate. Corona fighters are there continuously every week. We kind of throwing some activities or throwing some engagement tools wherein they find connected to the organization. And one of the policies I think every organization should cultivate is an open communication policy. I think by doing so, if any employee is passing through any mental issues or depression or any kind of issues with regard to their mental stability or some mental health, I would say, I think that open communication would give them an opportunity or platform to come up and discuss about it. Being in the hospital, we have the psychiatry department, we have the psychologist also. I think kind of a consultation can be offered to the employee if they are open enough, and if the organization and the top management encourage enough to their employee and workforce to come forward and talk anything and everything so openly, be it your work related, be it the family issue, or be it the personal issue or professional issue. I think that is gonna to work, and we from the management help the society at large to come up with the mental issues and try and ensure these particular disorders at common level. I think this should be the strategy going forward. Post COVID also, amid COVID also, lot of prospects are there, and I think we have to reach to the level where the world as well as India and the companies celebrate the International Day of Happiness that falls under March 20. And I think, like any day we celebrate here, maybe the World Health Day, Doctors Day, Nurses Day, there should be a day celebrated that is on International Day of Happiness. Let the atmosphere and environment be so positive by a lot of initiative, a lot of technology we have. There were a lot of AI being used in healthcare settings, and I think putting all approach, we should be able to do so. I think that effort, if the companies and organization take for the healthcare professional, I would say and assure that people would be happy working in the hospital rather than being pulled off. That is my submission.
So ensuring that the human resource were part of hospital ecosystem and the healthcare ecosystem, how making them happy and keeping them calm and
Indeed.
cool and stress free, because the amount of stress they are facing every day during the pandemic, I think no one else have faced that. And we
Sure.
salute the spirit of healthcare workers who have been fighting this
Thank you.
pandemic more than anyone. Apex salutes all of them. We are running short of time. Quickly, I'll come to all of you, maybe 2 minutes each. That what is the future way for enhancing mental or physical well-being in the new world order? Quickly, 2 minutes to each of you. The future path for enhancing and countering this stressful pandemic and the situation by being mentally and physically happy, and also countering those kind of stress. Maybe what is the way out? Maybe one liner or two liner. We can start with Dr. Dalji.
Yeah. Let's see if yeah. So I think it's kind of summarizing the things we already discussed. How the road forward would be that we all, take responsibility, take ownership, because we hearing about the second waves going on in different countries. So we have to be mindful that this whole pandemic thing is not to go away soon. It is probably going to be here for a while. So we are getting used to it anyway, but might as well get used to it in the right way. So, all the prevention strategies and, that needs to be at place, as we spoke about organizations taking up responsibility for their employers' wellness, that needs to happen. We need to do that at our own individual level. And the policies that have been made by the government, it's about kind of pushing it a little bit ahead and seeing if they are being implemented in the right way, because we are not talking only about the urban sector here, it's the rural sector that it's been affected a lot. And we need to prioritize a few things like, balanced healthy diets, regular exercises, mental health especially. So all these to be done, so it's all there, it just needs to be fast tracked and done in the right way. That's what I would say.
Mimansa, your take on that. Mimansa, can you hear us?
So for me, I would say that building acceptance to the ongoing time period. Yeah. Well-being part of our day-to-day living, where we are able to health a priority, whether it is our homes, whether it is schools, organization, corporates. We need to have more sensitive and open conversations about mental. We need to create a certain sense of sensitivity and awareness around it, and we really need to give that a priority. The third aspect is create more opportunities is to have more positive emotions. If you're not feeling negative, does not mean you're feeling positive. We have to create and build those different ways of how can I feel a little more positive, whether it is being happy, whether it is being joyful, whether it is feeling a sense of gratitude, whether it is feeling that I have contributed to something and I have made a change and a difference to somebody else's life. So even community engagement, how can I bring about a change and feel a sense of fulfillment and a sense of meaning and purpose by bringing about a change in somebody else's life, whether it's a community, a community of your choice, or a community that you think you can contribute to. Very key aspects of our emotional well-being. Our relationships have changed, and there is a lot of change that has gone over there. It's very, very important. It's one thing that we are learning to do, where we were all in the physical space, but we were still yet so disconnected because we would not have those conversations. We are now recognizing the importance and the significance of that in our day-to-day lives, where we are now trying to connect virtually with people, face to face with people. So one feels when you're related, when you feel sense of belonging, when you are investing in meaningful relationships, that also builds a sense of emotional support and resilience within you. So resilience is a skill we all can build. It's only a matter of change, self-management, that we can bring about in our own selves, and even through our support systems. It's very, very important to have good support systems in our day-to-day lives. That also helps us make us resilience. So these are the things, and of course, productivity is important. So when we recognize that routine went away, and the kind of routine that gives us a sense of purpose, meaning productivity, we need to stick to some level of productivity in our day-to-day lives, but without making any comparisons. It's very important that we recognize the limitation of the ongoing time period and see, given that the best that I can do in the space and the time that we have, in the resources that I have, that's the way forward. That's the way you will be able to feel more in control of yourself, where you recognize that there is something external which is impacting all of us. We are not alone in it. I am not alone in it. We are together in this. But what is the best that I can do in this space and the time that we have? That is the way forward.
Right, right. We are almost running out of time. I'll just quickly come to Nehalal. Your take on the future roadmap.
I just sum up with my two things. I think the good hospital surveillance system is required, and employee assistance program, and along with the employee assistance program, that could be a patient assistance program. What happens is generally in the hospital, once the patient is discharged, patient is gone, and I think the healthcare professional and hospital per se, the people, I mean the hospital generally understand that our responsibility is over, but there is an opportunity, that is a prospect. I think we should cultivate that opportunity, take a charge of that patient health completely post discharge, and taking care of their well-being as a complete care. I think that's an opportunity I'm looking forward to. By that, I think we can address a lot of issues of the patients who are already hospitalized and then discharged. And having an employee assistance program that covers everything, where you have the open conversation issues with the employees, be it professional, personal, mental wellness, anything and everything. I think if we address through this major program in the organization, we can try and touch many lives as far as mental health is concerned. Looking forward to those changes in the industry in coming time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to Dr. Diljit Kaur, Mimamsa Singh Tanwar, and Neha Lal for joining us in a very important session of second edition of Local India Healthcare Conclave. The topic was importance of happiness and well-being in the present scenario. I'm sure the delegates who have joined for this session and were also seeing our broadcast live in Facebook have got insights on some aspects of being happy and also taking care of physical and mental well-being, especially in the unprecedented time of this pandemic. And if I may end the panel, the this panel discussion, I think uh, as Dr. Daljit was saying, that we have to get used to that this pandemic is going to stay with us for some more time, irrespective of whether vaccine comes early next year or not. It will take some time to reach us. So we have to get used to it in a right way, proper approach to life, proper approach to being well and happy, taking all everything into consideration. And as Mimansa was saying, that we have to create sensitive conversation along the mental well-being and open conversations, so that more and more people are sensitized on those aspects. And as Nehalal was saying, that she was giving a perspective on healthcare workers, that a lot of issues needs to take care of those for healthcare workers who are the frontline workforce to tackle this pandemic. And I think if we all work together in this line, will surely create an ecosystem where we'll be mentally and physically happy, and will be, and the well-being of ours will be taken care of. Thanks to all of you for joining us for this special session on importance of happiness and well-being in the present scenario. I again thank Dr. Daljit Kaur, Mansa Singh Tanwar, and Neha Lal for joining us. And for our viewers, please stay with us. We'll be starting the next session on medical education during the pandemic, key learnings and way forward in some time. Do join us for the next session. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.